Makadini, how are you doing? I am now responding to the questions that were asked in my presentation on social learning theory as part of the requirements. So I just want to thank the people, particularly Helen and Josephine, who resonated with my presentation. They didn't specifically ask any questions, but I am grateful that they resonated with what I presented. So I will be answering as per person who asked the questions, and where the questions intersect, I will let you know and I will answer accordingly. So let's start with James's question. He asked me, how can media literacy be achieved? I think I will try to keep the answers very short for the sake of time, but I think media literacy can be achieved through formal training or informal training, just like any other type of literacy. You know how to read and write because someone had to teach you and you went to school for it. And I think that media literacy should actually be part of the curricula from early ages. In fact, teaching as it is right now does take into recognition media literacy, because you're taught what a book is about, you're taught about writers, what was the intention, you have literature as part of studies. So yes, I think that's how it can be done. Informally, you can have, of course, people who already know how to use media teaching you how to use it, what to look for in terms of misinformation, disinformation, or just wrong information, the difference between lies and truth. And the media producers themselves have an obligation to teach people how to read the media. Timothy asked, how can media overcome the challenge of self-construction of reality to promote change? Now, I would just like to say that the self-construction of reality is not necessarily a bad thing, particularly depending on where you're getting your media from. So there are some times when media is used badly. It's not like media is the great know-it-all in terms of knowledge. I can give an example of Zimbabwe, where they used their national media as a propaganda tool in the early 2000s to promote a sense of patriotism, but also somehow to support the land reform at the time, which we know was marred with a lot of bad feelings, but within the country there was good press about it. You also have Nazi Germany, which used their media as a propaganda tool, and it did work. It promoted change. It promoted this sense of better than everybody else for Germans at the time. And so it all depends. How do you want the media to promote change? However, I think that it's important, number one, to always be audience centric. That means remember, what does your audience want? I think I'll give an example again of that in Nazi Germany at the time. People were suffering, things were not well. So these guys, Hitler and his friends, were able to convince people because they spoke the language, they spoke the feelings of the people, and they showed like a solution, even though it was not a good one, to a problem that everybody was having. So speak the language of the audience, literally and figuratively speaking. The media needs to also adapt and change to the times in order that they can promote positive change. I hope that answers you, Timothy. And then Isaac said that the future is promising when it comes to social learning theory, but people need to be cautious of self and government need to take caution using self or government censorship as control, not to be offensive. I am not on the same boat with you on this one, Isaac. I do think that when change is necessary, it means that there are people benefiting, and sometimes people might avoid being offensive, and therefore no change will happen. And I'll give an example of what I mean. So if you, for example, if you want speaking against corruption, believe me, you're going to offend the people who are corrupt. So who are you offending? Who are you being offensive towards? And sometimes censorship whether self or government, it stops people from knowing truth, because then you're walking on eggshells, as they say. So I would not really look at it from that point of view. If people are still censoring themselves, it means that someone is lying or someone is not being honest about how they feel. I think people should openly discuss and sort of meet halfway, or at least convince someone who is lost to be found. Agneta threw back a question I asked. She said, who teaches and who learns? I think the person who knows teaches and the person who doesn't learns. It doesn't matter who. But I will talk about, for example, in the case of Africa, where you find that a lot of teaching comes from Western media, particularly American media, of which that needs to change. So we also need to be teachers of what we know to people who don't know. I don't believe that someone who does not know something can teach me, and I can't teach you something that I don't know. So there needs to be that balance. Paul asked, would we assume then that people go out and seek and identify what they already know? Yes and no. People do like to see what they're familiar with, but then the point of social learning, fine, you've got a society that has a certain way of thinking, acting, behaving, and values. But you find that now with media and how broad it has become, it's a global phenomenon. Sometimes people do willingly go out there and look for things that they don't know. You will see people watching Bollywood movies, Korean movies, or listening to music from Nigeria. Do you know music from Nigeria, from Kenya? Without media, you wouldn't know it. So yes, I think it's a blend of both, seeking and identifying with what you don't know and what you already know, because you also people have a sense of pride of where they're coming from, and so they might also want to look for music that resonates with where they're from. But you can still listen to Amapiano from South Africa even though you're Kenyan. Francis asked 3 questions. I'll try to be as fast as I can. The first one was the impact of the media in current age. Of course, you can see it. Media has brought people together in as much as it's also caused drifts, as far as I can see. How has it drawn people together? We can now speak in real time. You can watch this video that I'm doing today. You can watch it again. Recording was not something that an ordinary person could do. Nowadays, you can be a producer, a director, and the presenter of your own show because of the advances in media. So you've got the technological advances and also just the knowledge level advances in media. And what is media, by the way? He asked. Media can be tangible or intangible. So when you talk of tangible media, you're talking about the technology, the actual vessels, the laptop, the camera, microphone, radio, television. All that is media, but stories are also media, because they are the ones that actually convey. So whatever you do, whether it's a song, a movie, anything that people consume through their ears and their eyes as media is media. Right? I hope that it doesn't confuse and it's straight to the point, Francis. The second one was, what would I say constitutes media literacy? Of course, for me, media literacy is understanding what is media, where it comes from, because media is not this all-powerful thing. I think I already said that. It is created by somebody. So media literacy is understanding that media comes from people with agendas, people with certain languages, people who have their own reason for producing whatever they want you to share with you, and that you can also do that. And there's also, it's important to understand the concepts of misinformation, disinformation, and lies, all that as part of media. And media literacy means understanding and acknowledging when you have those discrepancies within the information that is shared, if on a massive scale or even on a personal scale. Right. And his third question was, how does one respond to Tinotenda? So Tinotenda is saying thank you in Shona. You can say Munotendei, which directly translates to, you don't have to thank me, I did it from my heart. Well, like, why do you have to thank me? But you can, if it's like a younger generation, they'll just say bo, it's bo, which means it's okay, it's cool, like poa. In conclusion, social learning can be a blessing or a curse, depending on the intention of the actual society that uses the social learning. And social learning still remains relevant in the 21st century in the advent of increased media outlets and technology. As far as I'm concerned, everyone now has the opportunity, including minority groups, to safeguard their own behaviors and cultures and values using this media space only through participation. So you can also be a teacher, just like to answer Agneta, who teaches, who learns. Even a minority group, they can teach us. Today, the Maasai can teach the Shona people on how they make food, how they do their rituals, and vice versa. And I hope that these responses have been adequate. I know I just used very short time. Thank you, Ndinotenda. Asante sana.